For decades now, we've had a means of propulsion infinitely more eco-friendly than anything electrical. Hydrogen fuel cell models, such as this Hyundai Nexo, emit nothing more harmful than water and would make far more sense than any EV if they were cheaper and had a better developed fueling infrastructure to support likely owners. In the future that'll change, and when it does, this car shows just how ready Hyundai is to respond.
So, what's it like? Well, there's nothing particularly off-putting or complex to get to grips with here. Click on the start button, and apart from an irritating little chime, there's a kind of silence you'll get from a full electric car. But the technology here, of course, is very different. The powertrain's built around a fuel cell of Hyundai's own design, comprising of a cathode, an anode, and a polymer electrolyte membrane. This sits beneath the bonnet, generating energy for a 120 PS electric motor that drives the front wheels and is also boosted by a 1.56 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery that harvests energy from the regenerative braking system. There are drive modes, but only two, eco and normal. Obviously, you'll need to be in normal to access what, once you're up and running, feels like reasonably eager performance. 60 from rest occupies 9.5 seconds en route to 111 miles an hour. That'll be sufficient for the needs of most owners, but it's distinctly unremarkable in EV terms. An I-Pace, say, would sprint to that figure in half the time. And the car does rather run out of puff once you approach the legal limit. Of more interest to an eco-minded potential operator is the news that the Nexo cleans the air around it as it drives its air filtration system, removing particles down to the level of 2.5 parts per million. Hyundai, unlike its rival Toyota, has decided to clothe its fuel cell technology in the fashionable shape of an SUV, but it's one with its own rather distinct visual identity. The front end is modelled around what Hyundai calls purist composite light, with triangular headlights below slim upper daytime running light strips, both of which flow into a wider version of the brand's signature cascading grille. The Nexo is slightly bigger than its battery-powered Kona electric showroom stablemate, but at 4.67 metres long, it's still not much larger than something like a Volkswagen Tiguan or a Volvo XC40. The styling is quite sleek in a conservative kind of way, with a rising belt line and a falling silhouette for the thin, floating style roof. Let's take a seat inside. Here it's like no Hyundai you'll ever have previously sat in. There's a high-rise centre console that incorporates the 4 auto gearbox buttons and the electronic handbrake switch. This silvered surface is absolutely peppered with little switches. We counted over 40, and it flows up into a 12.3-inch central infotainment screen. You view a further TFT display through this curiously shaped two-spoke wheel, and everything feels quite grey and quite clinical. This instrument cluster monitor has circular graphics for its power gauge and speedometer display, plus there's a customizable center section. The center stack screen, meanwhile, which is navigable via touch or via this lower rotary dial, usually displays in this split screen format, so you can view things like fuel cell information, navigation mapping, and audio settings all at once. What else? Well, the powered, heated vegan leather seats are very comfortable, and thanks to this two-tier center console, there's plenty of places to put things. Let's take a seat in the rear. Where space isn't noticeably compromised to a huge extent by the sophisticated engineering beneath the floor. It should seem adequately spacious to you, providing you're comparing it to an upper mid-sized SUV rather than a properly large one. There's 740 mils of legroom and 930 mils of headroom. Respective figures that, to give you some perspective, are a little more and a little less than an Audi Q5. Out back, the powered tailgate rises to reveal a boot with a 461 litre capacity. Now that's some way off the class standard for conventionally powered upper mid-sized SUVs. It's inevitably compromised by the large battery beneath the cargo area floor. If the difficulty of refuelling this Nexo didn't put you off owning one, then the £70,000 asking price very well might. There's only one Nexo trim level available, Premium SE, and that includes just about everything that you could want, including 19-inch alloy wheels, full LED headlights and powered door handles. Inside there's heated and ventilated seats which are trimmed in vegan leather. There's a rather small sunroof, a premium Krell audio system and one of the best surround view camera systems that we've ever seen. Plus, there's lots of safety kit, including, of course, autonomous braking. That's Hyundai's forward safety active assist system. You also get a blind spot view monitor, which, rather nattily, when you flick the indicator, uses cameras to show in the instrument display a live image of what's in your C-pillar blind spot. Like its direct rival, Toyota's second-generation Mirai, the Nexo's hydrogen fuel load is split between 3 H2 tanks, rather like scuba diving cylinders positioned either side of the rear axle. These can be topped up via a port above the rear wheel arch and store up to 6.3 kilos of hydrogen at a pressure of up to 700 bar. That's fractionally less than the capacity of a Mark II Mirai, as is the driving range, WLTP rated at 413 miles. That's 27 miles less than the Toyota. To get anywhere close to that, you'll need to do the majority of the driving in the provided eco mode. So how does fuel cell technology actually work? Well, the idea is that stored hydrogen is channeled through a fuel cell stack together with oxygen from the ambient air. This creates a chemical reaction which generates only electricity, heat and water, the latter exiting through an exhaust tip positioned below the rear bumper. You can see how everything's working and monitor key efficiency via various informative displays on the center dash screen. What about filling up? Well, that'll be a new experience for you to get to grips with. A hydrogen refill takes about the same time as filling the tank of a conventional combustion engine, petrol diesel model, around 5 minutes. That's the good news. The bad news is that finding a hydrogen station to facilitate that process is likely to be a challenge. At the time of this test in autumn 2020, there were just 12 operational hydrogen fuel stations in the UK, with 7 more available on private land which require special requests for access. Forget electric cars. The vehicles your children will one day be driving will be hydrogen fuel cell powered. Hopefully for the sake of our planet anyway. Would that the motor industry had ignored short-sighted governmental pressure and dispensed with its current electrified era, one that in many respects simply moves the automotive polluting point back to smoky power stations. By 2025, things might look a little different, even in the UK. By then, if promises are kept, there'll be more than 4 times as many hydrogen filling stations here. And Hyundai promises that thanks to the development programme it plans with Audi, future fuel cell cars will be around 30% cheaper. Until then, in this country at least, cars like the Nexo will for most of us remain little more than an interesting technological showcase and a damning statement of where the motor industry really ought to be.